Hello, and welcome once again to Cranky Commentaries. As always, my name is Jake Del Mastro, and as always, I'm joined by my very good friend, Keaton Byer. Hello, Keaton.
Did you get it?
Get what?
That was my silent hello.
Oh. Okay, so if you haven't gathered, today we are doing a classic silent movie.
Very classic.
The classic Buster Keaton movie, The General, which you have just heard what is allegedly the original score to.
Allegedly.
Keaton, I think we got to get something out of the way here up front before we get into it, because this might get confusing.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if we've actually ever discussed this, but your name is in fact Keaton, right?
So
And
I've been told.
Buster Keaton's name is Buster Keaton, which is not that common of a name. Are you in fact named after Buster Keaton?
I mean, not directly. I think maybe there was something floating around, but I don't think it's a direct one for one.
Right, okay.
I think that was definitely an influence.
Okay.
But I definitely was given this movie fairly early.
Yeah.
So there's that, but I don't know. But that being said, I'm gonna call him Buster for the entirety of this.
Exactly. We're to prevent confusion, we're just gonna call him Buster by his first name.
Yes, which isn't actually his first name, I don't think. It's not his real name.
Yeah, Buster doesn't sound like a normal person's first name.
He's named after his father. I think he's like sixth in the line of Joseph Keatons.
So his dad, Joe Keaton, is in this movie, right?
He is, yeah. He plays. Who does he play? He plays one of the Union generals, I believe.
Yes, he does. That's what he's listed as on IMDb.
Yeah. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it quite soon. So should we just jump into it here?
Sure.
So The General's a 1926 action comedy drama film.
Yeah. I would say the emphasis would be on the action.
I would agree 100%.
Yeah. I mean, there's some good comedy in it. Like, it's action comedy, very intertwined.
Yeah, it's like it's Rush Hour.
Yeah.
No, you don't agree?
No, I mean, just because, like, I think that obviously in the fact that this is silent, Rush Hour has gags which this movie can't pull off.
Yeah, fair enough. So do you want to give us just a little, before we go any further, a brief breakdown of the plot?
Okay, so what's the guy's name again? The guy who Buster Keaton plays.
Johnny Gray, I think. It doesn't matter. I don't know.
Johnny Gray, yes, it's Johnny Gray. So Johnny Gray is a railroad. Well, he's a railroad engineer, right?
He's a hapless railroad engineer.
So he drives the train, basically.
Yeah. What does it say? His first love is trains or something?
Yeah, sorry. His first, yeah. He has two loves. One for, like his engine and then his woman, was it?
Something like that.
Yeah. So he drives a train called the General in Georgia around the time of the Civil War.
Yes, he does.
So the Civil War happens, I guess, and
yeah.
So he tries to enlist in the Confederate Army. His work as a railway engineer is deemed too important to allow him to enlist, so he is rejected. Although this is never made clear to him or anybody, apparently.
No, it's hilarious. They don't.
Yeah,
it's just that one guy says it. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and so basically, his wife fucking basically leaves him because she's not his wife.
Well, I don't know.
Or fiance or whatever she is.
His girl back home or whatever.
Yeah, she leaves him because she's embarrassed that he couldn't, enlist, or he was too much a coward to enlist.
Yeah, and then there's that it's so frustrating because he's like her father and her brother go to enlist and they see that they don't see that he's the first in line, you know? He's the first
Yeah,
in line
yeah,
to
yeah.
enlist, and then they think that
Yeah.
he didn't even get in line, so they tell her that he didn't even get in line. Oh my god, it's such a misunderstanding.
I mean, you know, are we gonna blame him for not enlisting in the Confederate
Yeah, I
Army?
mean, I was gonna wait from, like, I don't know, we should address that for sure at some point.
We'll get to that later, but we will get to that.
Because the end gets a bit rough there.
Yeah. Well, okay. Actually, there was a really funny joke in this particular scene where he's getting the where he gets rejected, and he says, like, if you lose this war, don't blame it on me.
Don't blame it on me.
Anyway,
they did lose the war.
yeah, they lose the war, as if you didn't know. In case you didn't know, the Confederates lost the Civil War.
Yeah.
So several months or about a year later or whatever, he's still going ahead, driving his train, you know, having a jolly old time, although I guess he's sad because his woman left him.
And the war is happening.
And the war is happening as well.
So I don't know if he's having a jolly old time exactly. But...
Yeah. But anyway, he happens to be on this train that gets hijacked.
His beloved general.
His beloved engine, the general, is hijacked by Union soldiers.
The rascals.
The damn anyway, so
the villains, those Unionists,
the villains of the story,
those American citizens.
They hijack the train, and then he steals another or not steals. He commandeers.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Another train to go chase the train, and a train chase ensues.
Yes.
And that's pretty much the entire movie.
Yeah, and like there's more plot to it, but
I mean, really?
I mean,
not a lot.
No. Not really. Not really. It's like the point of all of this is that the original people who stole his train are trying to prepare the Union Army for an ambush on the Confederate camp, basically.
I don't think this film initially does a very good job of explaining all that. From what I gather, some of that is like by design, because apparently Buster Keaton was not a big fan of title cards.
Yeah, I understand. That's clear in his very sparing use of them.
Yeah, so I think he kind of thought that the action could speak for itself. And for the most part, it does. But I think in those very specific scenes where they're kind of setting up the whole thing.
Yeah, it's not...
I think they could have used more than one title card explaining the plan.
There's a bit of a lapse in plot communication there, but it's not important because, as you say, it's all about the train chase.
It's all about the train chase, and what a wonderful train chase it is.
It's such a good train chase. So yeah, some initial thoughts. This was definitely my favorite silent film growing up, which it still might be.
Yeah.
So
I mean, obviously, I would say my favorite is Nosferatu, but
yeah,
we already did that one.
We did already do that one. That's close. That's close for sure. As we were just saying, I was definitely confused, me as a kid, the whole Confederate perspective thing.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a bit more later on. There's not really much explanation for it, like, to be honest. Well, here's the thing. So, upon some initial reading, this is what it says. It says, like, it didn't think Buster Keaton's didn't think the public would accept the Confederates as the villains.
Okay.
Which is the main question there is, was this a decision actually made because of external factors?
Mm-hmm.
Or was he just like a Southern sympathizer? Like,
I don't know. He's not
himself.
Southern, for what I know,
No,
right?
I don't think he is. I mean,
he's from Kansas, which... Was that even a state at the time?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I mean,
Is he from Kansas? I could be fucking wrong.
No, he was born in Hollywood Hills.
No, it says he died in Hollywood Hills. He was born in Kansas.
Did I misread that? Oh, I totally did.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. It says burial place, and I thought that said birthplace.
I am not an expert on the Civil War, so I don't know. Was Kansas part of the South?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Wait. Oh, no, it was not.
It was admitted to the Union in 1861.
Yeah. As a free state, so not a slave state.
There we go.
Sorry, trying to get our Civil War history here correct.
Yeah, you got to get that all right, because Buster Keaton sure as hell sort of tried to, visually at least. I was gonna say literally, but maybe not exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so as we were getting at, like, so why did he decide to make the South the good guys in this? And I'm really not sure that it was a good decision even at the time, because this movie was a fucking disaster financially.
It was, but there's a lot of other factors for that, I think. I think you might be right that that's part of it. But, I mean...
Well, so I'm saying, even if, so either he was wrong and that wasn't the right decision, or... clearly that wasn't the thing that was a make or break for this movie.
Yeah.
It was something else.
It was, yeah, exactly. Totally. No, you're right. Yeah, that was definitely not the biggest issue with the film in the end, I think. Or rather, the biggest issue that the public had with the film.
Yeah.
So.
I believe they just thought it was kind of not substantial.
I don't know. I do know. They thought it was not cohesive, you know?
Right, yeah.
I think they didn't quite get the whole action comedy blend.
Right. And, kind of this was also towards the end of the silent era as well.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Had they been doing sound films yet?
1926, if they had.
Or it was early on in the thing. But anyway, so, I think people were very much already used to this kind of film, and they might be a little bit bored of the sort of action Buster Keaton style.
As we'll get into it, Buster Keaton definitely desensitized people to how awesome he is.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah,
and we'll talk about that in a second. But all of those Confederate details aside, it's a sick film in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's action-packed, it's pretty fucking hilarious, and it's technically fascinating.
Yes.
I will admit, as a kid, I definitely fast-forwarded through most of the non-train chase or distinct, bit scenes.
Yeah, I mean, although once again, that's most of the movie, is just straight chase.
Yeah, exactly, that's 75% of the movie. There's a bit of a lull in the middle. When he first gets off the train, to then when he gets back on the train again. Because there's that whole bit in the... Anyway, so you mentioned the budget. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get in part 2, when we get to the production, but in terms of basic facts, the budget was obscenely high for a film of that era, of that time. It cost $750,000 in 1926 dollars, which in today's dollars adjusts to $11.25 million approximately. Which, which in today's movies...
Today would actually be a fairly cheap film, but I put in the outline here that there's a little bit of a side note that I think we need to address about inflation.
Oh, yes, go on.
Basically, the way that they generally calculate inflation is using something called CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, which is basically, it's a collection of consumer goods and services that the average person is going to purchase.
Right.
So essentially, it tries to measure the cost of living, essentially.
Right.
However, once again, these are consumer goods.
So it's milk and eggs and...
Yeah, so it's not necessarily gonna translate to the cost of making a film.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, for example, it doesn't...
Take...
For example, at the time when they made this, they didn't have Hollywood unions and shit like that, which actually made people pay stuff. Pay people correctly, right?
Yeah.
So it's more complicated than just than just using CPI
totally.
to like measure how expensive that really was at the time.
Yeah, an equivalent.
Because even though it's only $11 and a quarter million, like only $11.25 million.
Only,
like...
yeah. The consumer goods doesn't include a locomotive, I don't imagine.
No, I don't think it does. I don't think it does.
So, how much did it make, do you think? Did you see? Have you seen?
I mean, I'm looking at the outline right now. So it made $1 million in 1926, which was probably a lot.
I did put it on the outline.
Yeah, it's
that
right
is
in front
a
of me.
lot. I forgot I put it on
however,
the outline. I thought I only put the budget.
If you subtract the budget
of $750,000.
Yeah, it's
not great.
It's not great.
It's not great.
Also, as we like, film budgets are kind of fake.
Yeah, we've talked about this briefly before, I think.
Yeah.
We're like, this is mostly
I'm sure even back in the day, like, it was fake.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if the 700. I mean, we'll talk about this afterwards.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the $750,000 includes all the lawsuits to pay.
I think it does. To be honest, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it includes all the. We'll talk about it. We'll talk. Mostly that's part 2. So
yeah.
We'll save all that. Right now, let's talk about Buster some more. Because we talked about him a bit, but let's talk about, like, he's a strange character to come out of, like, film history, and as always, I don't want to get too lost in his individual story, because that's not what we're talking about. But that being said, there's some pretty relevant stuff, so we should just ever so briefly talk about his career leading up to that, or his life leading up to that film.
Yeah, for sure.
So he was born not in Hollywood Hills.
No.
That's where he's currently buried, actually. So if you want to go see his grave, go right ahead.
I'm sure it's exquisitely marked.
Yeah, probably, yes. So he was born in 1895 in Kansas, directly into show business because his parents had a vaudeville act, which basically they started incorporating Buster into when he was 3 years old. And that's just like as early as there was record. They were probably doing it sooner. Have you seen the picture? Any pictures of it?
I have, yeah.
Pretty questionably weird looking. It's weird looking. I mean, vaudeville's always. I don't know.
It's always kind of weird looking.
Like, do you want to give how would you describe vaudeville?
You want me to describe? How about I read sort of the Wikipedia blurb on it.
Okay, sure. That'll do.
Okay. Vaudeville is a theatrical genre of variety entertainment born in France at the end of the 19th century. A vaudeville was originally a comedy without psychological or moral intentions, based on a comical situation, a dramatic composition or light poetry interspersed with songs or ballets. It became very popular in the United States and Canada from the early 1880s until the early 1930s.
Really weird shit.
But yeah, it's a weird, like, show.
Variety
kind
show.
of thing. Yeah.
But the description of the act, it just basically sounds like his dad just, like, beat him on stage. So his mom would play the saxophone on the side while Buster and his dad Joseph, they would do a quote-unquote sketch where I think, what did it say? It said, like, Buster would, like, be disobedient to his dad, and his dad would get progressively angrier and angrier until it devolved into Joseph just throwing Buster cartoonishly into the set and, like, smashing the set just, like, with his son.
Jeez.
So just, like, they even, I think the Wikipedia page said that he, like, sewed, like, a suitcase handle into his clothing for, like, easier gripping.
So that they could pick him up.
So they could throw him easier.
Jeez.
And apparently they were arrested for child abuse several times.
Jesus Christ.
Because they would, like, take this on the road, and, like, sometimes people, like who knows, like, it's hard to say. my opinion is that they should have been arrested for child abuse, but there's the other end where it's possible that it's just like, people not understanding that it's an act, and like,
Yeah, that's true.
and they were like traveling around. I don't know. It doesn't seem like,
Or it's possible that like this was, made up to promote the act.
yeah. And I wanted to mention also, I forgot to mention this earlier. Two things I forgot to mention earlier that I'll mention right now. First thing is that, like, I think a lot of details about Buster's life come from Buster himself.
Yeah.
And I don't know how true.
You don't know if he's the most reliable narrator.
Yeah, I don't know if he's the most trustworthy source about details on his life.
Yeah.
And the best example I would say is, like, I was reading that how he got the name Buster was, like, originally he said it was that he could, like, when he, in these early vaudeville acts, he could, like, take a beating or whatever, so someone in the act called him, this kid's a real Buster, he gets busted up or whatever. And because, his dad's name's Joseph, they just call him Buster. And then that story kind of, like, exaggerated, and by the time he was, like, elderly, like the last time he told the story, he said that Harry Houdini gave him that name.
Yeah, so it's
yeah,
it's more and more exaggerated over time.
Yeah, it's like Broken Telephone, but it's just him playing. And then the second thing is that I wanted to, because so much of my information comes from this one book, that I wanted to mention it up top, but then I forgot, so I'm mentioning it kind of like lower middle.
Okay.
It's called Buster Keaton Cut to the Chase by Marion Mead. So if you want to know more about Buster Keaton's life, I just very, very sparingly read a couple chapters of it that gave me some information, but there's a lot more stuff, and it seems like Buster Keaton had a pretty fucking fascinating life. So it's definitely worth a read if you're interested in anything.
Yeah, and he kept acting like up till the end, pretty much, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He was a silent film star for sure.
But he had like a little bit of a career resurgence in sort of the
towards the end of his
late
life.
50s, early 60s, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did have a few things, but so I don't think Buster liked his father very much.
Okay.
Something the book said, I don't remember, I didn't write it down or anything, but like the book said, like, he only really respected his father because he thought it was like, quote unquote, un-American or something to like not like your father.
Oh. Right.
But like, so he like respected his father because he was his father, but I don't think he liked him because eventually like they abandoned his mother and Buster like abandoned his father in San Francisco. They like fled to New York after a show.
Jeez.
Because apparently he was like a raging alcoholic, and like it was starting to affect their performance. I think Buster Keaton was 21 at this time, and he'd been doing this his whole fucking life.
Yeah.
They flee while he's in a drunken stupor, and basically Buster Keaton like falls into the film business in New York, and then
Yeah, funny though that New York is where the film industry is at this time.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, it makes sense,
Yeah, well, I mean, why the only reason why the film industry is in LA, right?
Is it because they wanted a lawless place to do it?
Basically, yeah. So basically, it has to do with Thomas Edison.
Fuck Thomas Edison. I've said this once and I'll say it again.
Right. So he owned like a lot of patents related to motion picture.
Yeah.
And he basically got every movie studio to pay him royalties on every movie, right?
Yeah.
So basically, a bunch of people got together and they were like, okay, we're gonna make a bunch of movies and then we're not gonna pay your royalties. And if you wanna come make us pay, if you wanna come get us, we'll be in LA. Come at us.
That's so sick. Yeah, eat it, Thomas, you fucker.
So yeah, so
That's awesome.
They moved to LA because they didn't want to pay Thomas Edison any money, and they wanted somewhere where he couldn't find them.
Honestly, fills me with so much more respect for LA than I had.
So, but anyway, about Buster Keaton.
Yeah.
Because that is.
Yeah, the first thing basically he did in New York was like get into a film with I imagine you've heard of Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle.
Have I?
No, have you? I don't know. He's a silent film star.
I don't think I have.
He's of the generation just before Buster Keaton.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I almost fell down a Fatty Arbuckle rabbit hole, but I quickly caught myself before I got too deep.
Yes.
So let's just say look into him if you don't know anything about him, because it's weird story. He got accused of murder. But long story short, Buster cut his teeth making films with Arbuckle for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got the attention of Arbuckle's producer at United Artists, a guy coincidentally also named Joseph. Joseph Schenck, I believe it's pronounced.
I would imagine that's how that's pronounced.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone knows I'm not so good at those, so I never like to assume.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to do the pronunciation guide.
It's Shen.
It's got to be Shank.
Schenck, yeah.
What else would it be? Sank?
Yeah, maybe Schenck. Schenck. I don't know.
I don't know. It's make any fucking sense at all.
No, stupid. Not the name, my pronunciation. But yeah, this producer really liked what he saw, so he gave Buster Keaton a whole production crew to himself. So he just like, here's unlimited money, make me some films.
Okay, so maybe like if you're not too familiar with Buster Keaton, like do you maybe want to like go over why you think Buster Keaton is so incredible and why he would have been noticed so so obviously? Because like I don't think we've really gotten to like
what makes him good. That's what I was just about
what
to
makes Buster Keaton.
What I was just about to get into.
Yeah.
Were like the films he made and what he was known for. So let's just start with like what shot do you associate him with? Like in your head, what's the first thing you think of? Just I'm curious.
A lot of the things where he's like falling off a building or some shit, or like, you know, jumping between trains.
Yeah, I mean, other than this movie, for me, it was that one shot where he's standing there and then the front, like
the house falls on him.
The front of the house falls and then the open window.
Yeah, so he's kind of really big into like visual comedy.
Yes.
Is kind of his shtick. And often doing very elaborate stunts.
Yeah, he does visual gags often at the expense of his own safety.
Yes. I'm surprised that Buster Keaton lived to age 70.
I am shocked that he lived through the years 1920 to 1930. Like, some of the shit he did, like, he broke his neck. He, like, shattered his elbow. He, like, if you've seen any of his films, you just see how he throws himself around. Even in this movie, in, like, throwaway gags, he's, like, sacrificing his body for the gag. Like...
Yeah.
Even just, like, the scene, where they're not, it's after he gets off the train the first time and he's just rescued what's-her-name, and they're in the woods and it's raining. He just does this like one thing. He like leaps out of the side of the frame and like lands on his stomach. It's like, oh, that looks so painful, but it's just for the visual gag.
Apparently, like he was also like just very super like intent on making sure that everything was real, because he didn't believe that the audience would believe it if he did some kind of trick.
Yeah. He was like, it's a very weird, because it's such a different philosophy to filmmaking back then. Like,
Yeah.
It's not.
Also, once again, actors' unions did not exist.
Yes, very, very. I mean, that's why he had to star in all his films, because no one else could or would do the stuff he wanted to.
It's true. Yeah. If
Like, that's why.
like, I mean, I'm not an actor, but if somebody asked me to do that, I'd be like, fuck no.
Fuck it. Especially that house thing. Like, that was the. If you again, you should look that up. I forgot what movie is it from. I think it's.
Yeah. I don't remember what movie it's from, but yeah. It's if they like got anything wrong with the alignment of that like frame, like he would have been killed instantly.
It was 2 tons. Was the full weight of it, so he would have just been flattened.
Yeah. And I'm surprised, or I guess things did fuck up, but I'm surprised that nothing fucked up fatally.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, is so many things did fuck up, but it never seemed to be fatal. During one of his films, he did a stunt where he like stood under a water tower, and then like they like opened it and all the water fell out onto him. And obviously that's a lot of water, and it broke his neck, which he didn't find out until years later, apparently, because he just like kept going, and then like years later a doctor
How do you
was like,
not know that your neck is broken?
it happens. It happened to my grandma, actually. Like,
oh yeah,
jeez. Yeah, you find out later.
How does that happen?
Obviously, it's not like the worst break at that stage, but still,
right?
Probably hurt a lot.
Like, wasn't he knocked unconscious like while he was filming this movie?
Yeah, totally. In this film, when during the cannon scene, we'll talk about that a bit more. This is kind of we're veering into production territory.
True, sure. So, but yeah, basically, what you got to know is that like Buster Keaton did ridiculous stunts all the time.
Exactly. Like,
he was kind of like the fucking Jackie Chan of the 1920s.
Basically, he was like the physical Charlie Chaplin. Like, Charlie Chaplin did some physical stunts, but he didn't throw himself around to the same degree. There was a lot more danger in Buster Keaton's films than in Charlie Chaplin's films.
Yeah, because I think Charlie Chaplin wisely didn't want to get injured.
Yeah, he didn't. Like, Buster Keaton's definitely a weirder. Like, they're both crazy dudes, for sure. There was also speculation that Buster Keaton couldn't read.
Really? Maybe that's why he didn't like the title cards.
I think it could be possible, because like it is just speculation, and he admitted, because of his upbringing, he like, I'm paraphrasing, but he said like he didn't learn to read and write till a later age than normal, he said.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, it's possible he just wasn't good at it.
That's kind of more what I'm thinking, but there was enough that it was included in this book, this whole paragraph of this speculation that he couldn't read, because no one saw him do it.
Right. Yeah, I don't find that implausible. Like, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, he was born in 1895 to some crazy dude father who threw him around till he was 21 years old, when he literally ran away and started making movies.
Or it's possible that, like, you know, maybe he could read, and then he got concussed so many times while doing stunts.
Yeah, also a possibility.
He just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. Also, very much a possibility.
So I suppose it's time that we sort of move on to the genesis of this film specifically.
Yes, we've been rambling about Buster himself a bit.
Yes. So basically, the idea for this film came when Buster was working on his 1926 film, The Battling Butler.
Yes.
His writing partner, Clyde Bruckman, brought him a book called The Great Locomotive Chase, which is based on a true story, correct?
Yes, it is based on a true...
I said based on a true story.
Based on a true story, yes.
Now, like, naturally this tickled Buster's... It tickled Buster's interests, because Buster was a big fan of trains.
Yes, he was. And I don't really know where he picked this up, but apparently he had always been obsessed with trains. So this book was right.
And this is not the last train film he would make either.
No, it's not, is it? I totally forgot about that. No. What's the other one called?
Oh, you talking about the National Film Board movie? The what's it called again? He did the movie in Canada.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called.
The Railroader.
When was that?
1965.
Wow. When did he die? Oh, he died 1966. Wow.
Yeah. So that was one of the last movies he ever made.
Yeah, so he gets this book that he thought would make an excellent film, except he thought the perspective of the book was a little bit wrong for film, because as it happens, as we were mentioning earlier on in the episode, the book was from the perspective of the Union soldiers, and Buster thought that the fact that they were quote-unquote raiders was not good.
Right. So is he basically saying because in the context of this story, at least, the Union was the aggressor?
Yes. Which, that's kind of what I think we might... The piece of information we might have been missing earlier. It's possible,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can see how he would think that, but... Yeah.
because the character he created, Johnny Gray, is not a real person.
No, that's true. It wouldn't make sense for him to be in the... Because it wouldn't necessarily... Because he's just supposed to be kind of like a hapless kind of dude, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't really make sense that he was a Union soldier.
Exactly.
Or a soldier at all, really.
Exactly. So, like, the story that Buster chose to tell, I guess, only made sense from the story, or from the perspective of the... Or not only made sense, it's just he wanted to be able to tell that... I mean, to some extent we're, like, trying to get into, like, his head, and... I don't know how well we're going to be able to do that, but I can see a... Sorry? I said, no, you don't think we'll be able to get into his head?
Yeah. I can see a version of events where that's his thought process, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can see that as well. But it is also hard to say. It is also possible that he just thought, people would prefer seeing... I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. Who the fuck knows? There's no point in me sitting here speculating. So let's just move right on.
I find it conceivable that he could have changed the movie to just not have anything to do with the Civil War, but
Yeah, I mean, the Civil War is pretty important, though.
Well, I mean, it's just a train chase, though, essentially.
I know, but then there's that, you forget that there's that whole Civil War reenactment scene at the end, which is like one of the most accurate Civil War reenactment silent films.
I don't know, maybe he could have said it during the Mexican-American War.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is it's so weird that it is coincidentally so accurate, even though the Civil War aspect's not actually that important to a lot of it.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Like, because he created a story that exists entirely outside of the actual... Like, the two main characters aren't actually soldiers. Like, Johnny Gray, the whole point is he's not a soldier.
Yeah. Although, damn sure he tried.
Yeah, he damn sure fucking tried.
I think we've kind of attempted without success to try to get into his head or see why he did this decision, but I'm not sure we're gonna know.
It's just so
really
confounding.
Yeah,
I just want to like. It just keeps gnawing at my brain.
Short of resurrecting Buster Keaton,
like
I don't know how we're gonna figure this out.
Crack that motherfucker's skull open and see what's in there, because
all right, let's drive to Hollywood Hills.
Yeah. We know where he's buried, but so Buster was gonna, first of all, he was gonna buy the film rights to the book, but his lawyers advised him that it had just entered the public domain, so don't buy it, just do it. Just make the movie. So he didn't.
That's funny, because also this film is now in the public domain.
I found that full circle. I watched this movie on YouTube for free.
Yeah, I know. I watched it on archive.org, but
it's the same difference.
Yeah. If you want to watch this movie, do not hesitate. Just fucking go on YouTube or archive.org and search The General. You'll find it.
It's there, yeah.
In HD.
Yeah, it's available for you to watch. It's public.
Although you won't get the original soundtrack.
No, well, that's a whole conversation.
We'll talk about that later. I think we'll talk about that in part 2. Yeah. Because I think every time we do a silent film, that's gonna come up.
Yeah, it's true. But it's a quality of silent films, I think.
So, what do we got now?
The last piece of information is that the location manager, Bert Jackson, found them a small, picturesque Oregon railroad on which to shoot. And this is a line owned by a small company that went defunct in the 60s, but has since been reinvigorated, called the Oregon Pacific Eastern Railway.
Yeah.
And this railway also coincidentally owned 2 Civil War era locomotives, so it was the perfect place for them to begin their filming.
I never really thought about that, but I guess this whole thing would have had to been filmed on a railroad that wasn't in use.
Yeah, they need one that isn't in use. Yeah. I mean, I think it was kind of in use. We'll talk about it in part 2. But
right.
But yeah, but before we talk about that, like then the epic production that we're going to tackle, as I say in part 2, I believe it's time for a particular segment.
I know. What segment is that?
Well, I believe Merriam-Webster's dictionary.
Did you look this up?
Well, one I believe you could describe it as the property as of a statement of being in accord with the fact of reality.
That's a very good description of what that is. And what would you call said property?
I believe.
Would you call it? Hello, and welcome to our fantastic segment about the logical negation of falsehood, and that is the truth. Keaton,
that is the truth, yes.
What do we have here today?
Welcome. So we hinted at it earlier, but we're just going to go into a lot more detail. This is we're on a run here of some very accurate truth sections.
Yes. So, just for those of you who are new to the podcast, the truth is the segment where we dig deep to get to the very bottom of some
the bottom, all right,
mystery or behind the scenes information or possibly, extraterrestrial information about the film or tangentially related.
Yes, exactly.
And we uncover the truth.
Yes, exactly. And in the last couple of weeks, we've been on a good run in terms of getting to the actual facts of accordance with reality.
Exactly.
Because,
like that whole bit about the doggone tribe, that was was enlightening.
Some of the things I've said on this segment have been accused of not being in accordance with reality, which I would disagree with, but that's neither here nor there. As I alluded to earlier, this week we're going to talk about the Great Locomotive Chase.
Oh, the real event?
Hells yeah, the real event.
Okay.
The book is it's written by a guy named William Pittenger.
Yeah.
And it's a memoir of his experience as a Union soldier in a clandestine secret spy operation where they hijack a train and take it back north, burning bridges and snipping cables as they go, all while being chased down. So it's a pretty epic story. I read the first chapter of it. I was hoping to read more of his actual book, but man, it's pretty exciting. So I suggest you look into it.
Yeah, I do that. So, although this is also a book that is written from a person that was there, right?
Yeah.
It is potentially exaggerated. It may not be,
Well, yes.
fully verified.
It is not fully verified. But essentially, so there's two versions of it. The first version was a memoir called, I believe it was Suffering and Sacrifice, or Death and Sacrifice, something like that. And that was released in like before the war was even over. And I think some of the people involved have been corroborated, but the actual events, yeah, I think are the degree of their the epicness with which they were described in the book has been questioned a little bit. But the actual fact of the expedition, let's call it, is true. So let's go into that a bit.
So we know that there was a chase that happened.
Yes. This whole operation was actually organized by a civilian by the names of James Andrews, who was, according to his Wikipedia page, a Kentucky-born civilian serving as a secret agent and scout in Tennessee. So this whole thing was his idea. He basically was a spy, and he came up with the plan to go steal a train.
So Kentucky was neutral during the war, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So presumably he could have been from either side.
He could have been from either side, presumably, but he was described in the book as like the most upstanding seeming Southern gentleman they'd ever seen, and they assumed when they first saw him that he must have been a spy for the other side, because he seemed so.
Oh, he must have been a spy for the Confederacy.
Yeah, they assumed he was a Confederate because of he seemed like a Southern gentleman.
Right, okay. Huh.
He proposed a daring raid that would destroy the Western and Atlantic Railroad as a useful reinforcement and supply link to Chattanooga from Atlanta and the rest of Georgia. He recruited the men known later as the Andrews Raiders, which was 23 essentially volunteer Union soldiers from 3 Ohio regiments. And essentially they all split up and met in Marietta, Georgia by midnight of April 10th. And then the plan was to steal a train on its run north towards Chattanooga, stopping to damage or destroy track, bridges, telegraph wires, and track switches behind them, so as to prevent the Confederate Army from being able to move troops and supplies from Atlanta to Chattanooga. The Raiders planned to cross through the Federal siege lines on the outskirts of Chattanooga and rejoin Mitchell's army. So originally, they tried it once, and they all met up in Marietta, and then because the plan was they were going to meet up with this engineer, this Confederate engineer who essentially was like the fulcrum of the plan, and he was going to help them steal the train, and he was going to because he knew all the details, and he fucking jumped ship as soon as they all arrived in Marietta. So they were all just stranded in Marietta with no plan, basically. And apparently Andrews was asking them if they had it's do any of you guys have engineering experience?
Does anybody know how to drive a train?
Exactly. That's what it was. But anyway, they all just abandoned ship and came back. But this crazy motherfucker wanted to do it again, so they did.
Wait, so they attempted it once and failed, essentially.
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
But they didn't get very far. They didn't actually get.
Right.
They assembled, and then the engineer bailed, and they all bailed.
Right. So, undeterred, however, James J. Andrews comes back, right?
And then they steal a train called the Texas. Or sorry, no, they steal the General, obviously.
Right. But this time they brought an engineer with them.
Yeah, I believe they brought their own engineer.
I mean, how hard could it be to drive a train? It only goes in a straight line.
I mean, yeah, Buster Keaton makes it look pretty easy.
I mean, he does it while not even, like, being in the... Where do you drive the train from? I don't know.
Yeah.
Somehow he does it from on top of the train and behind the
He's
train
all over
and
the train.
in front of the train.
It looks like you just have to push the lever and then it just goes.
Yeah, exactly.
So the raid began on April 12th, 1862, when the regular morning passenger train from Atlanta with the locomotive General stopped for breakfast at the Lacey Hotel. They took the General and the train's 3 boxcars, which were behind the tender in front of the passenger cars. The passenger cars were left behind. Andrews had previously obtained from the work crew a crowbar for tearing up track. The train's conductor, William Allen Fuller, and 2 other men chased the stolen train first on foot and then by handcar belonging to a work crew. So that's exactly the movie.
Yeah, it is.
So it looks like Fuller seems to be our
Johnny Gray.
Johnny Gray here.
Right. So, but did they actually get another train to chase them with?
Yes. They got the Texas. I think you have to take into account spy work in the Civil War. It's just a bunch of dudes. Like, it's not organized, you know? Like, I think...
No, it doesn't sound like it is.
I think this was all very seat of the pants, because it seems like they saw another train, and Andrews was just like, we should take that other train. But then it turns out there was like,
yeah, why not, man?
Yeah,
it's
like,
there.
We're here. But then there was like a bunch of workmen, and he was like, maybe we could fight them. Nah, it's too much work. We'll leave that train.
Right. But so their main objective was not just to steal the train, but to damage the railway.
Exactly. The train was actually not really important at all. The point was to destroy this supply line, this important Confederate supply line. And they were...
So why did they need a train in the first place, then?
That's a good question. I think it's just the best way to do it, you know? Because it's probably like...
Because then they could run away quickly.
Exactly. Like you're on the line going really fast.
Right, okay.
I mean, I guess you could just, you know... It seems like they put a lot of work...
Yeah, why not just blow up the bridges?
Yeah, just like send some like secret missions to go do that instead. It seems like they just gave this Andrews guy a lot of money to just... And they're just like, yeah, go fuck some shit up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is they said like when they were in the town, they were super highfalutin and like didn't like, they like, yeah, well, yeah, we had tons of money. That wasn't an issue. So,
I mean, it sounds like it was just like the Union didn't particularly care how they damaged this railroad.
Yes, but
like they just basically were like, oh, you want to go fuck up some railroads in the South? Sure, here's some money.
Basically, yeah.
And then Andrews was like, okay, now I'm gonna steal a train, right?
And so he was like kind of in contact with a general, apparently, allegedly. Like, this is all what it says in the book. So
wait, so Andrews didn't write the book, did he?
No. It was one of the guys who, what was his name? William Pittenger was his name.
Right.
So finally, basically, they get chased down. A lot of shit goes on. Finally, just 18 miles from Chattanooga, with the locomotive out of fuel, Andrews' men abandoned the general and scattered. Andrews and all of his men were caught within 2 weeks. Ultimately, Mitchell's attack on Chattanooga failed, the General Mitchell. So ultimately, it didn't work out.
Right.
So it was fruitless. And Andrews was immediately executed upon being caught.
Okay.
So Confederate forces charged all the raiders with quote-unquote acts of unlawful belligerency.
Okay, that's a interesting way of putting it.
And basically spies
Yeah. Is Grand Theft Train not a crime?
Apparently not yet.
Grand Theft Locomotive.
Grand Theft Locomotive. But yeah, he was executed, and 7 others were executed. A couple people escaped.
So the whole operation was a complete failure.
It was a complete failure, yes, but you know what? It wasn't for naught, because you know what the American Army got out of it?
What did they get?
The Medal of Goddamn Honor.
What do you mean?
So this is the first mission that for American soldiers received the Medal of Honor for.
Really?
Yeah.
I assume it was like awarded posthumously though, because they were executed.
Yes, but guess who didn't get a Medal of Honor? Because he wasn't a soldier.
Andrews.
Yeah.
Damn, yeah.
It's a bummer.
I mean, did he get anything?
I don't know, medals.
Did he get the Presidential Medal of Freedom?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe it does. Let's click on his Wikipedia page. Maybe it has like awards.
None that I can see.
So that's your train chase story. Obviously some similarities, some differences.
So maybe that's another reason why Buster Keaton didn't want to do it from the point of the Union. Because it failed from their perspective.
It's true. It did fail from... Yeah, it's true.
Because, like, normally you want the protagonists to win in the end, right?
No, that's a good point. That is a good point. It just is like, there's a lot of weird questions, but I guess that is a good reason.
Yeah.
We'll get... There's a lot more to question, but we'll question it in the next episode, because it all kind of leads...
So that is the truth?
That is the truth, yes.
Wow, I feel so much more informed now.
As you should.
Exactly. So, thank you for listening to our episode. Should we maybe plug the new Discord?
Hells yeah, we should.
Yeah, okay.
We've got a new Discord. We've got a Discord server. Now the real question is how we're gonna get you on it.
Yeah, so we'll put a link on the link tree that we have, and then you can get there from our Instagram or
there you go.
Some of our social media or whatever.
So yeah, any social media. So if you want to chat about,
so there will be links to it on our social media.
Yeah.
When this episode comes out.
Yeah, so we'll post try and post some stuff in there, see how active it is. I don't know. I imagine we're a small operation. I imagine it'll be a slow growing thing, but if you wanna
come hang out, come talk to us.
Join our Discord server.
You can join our Discord, send us a message, or talk about movies in general if you want.
Hells yeah, it'll be a good time.
Good times.
Yeah, and as always, follow and whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Subscribe. If you could just subscribe to us.
Yeah, if you could just do that.
That'd be great.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Right, so I think that's all we have for this week,
yep.
But we will be back.
We'll be back with much more next week.
All right.